It's MRC TV's public service announcement with Brittany Hughes and Eric Shiner.
Welcome to the MRC TV podcast. I'm Eric Shiner.
I'm Brittany Hughes. I guess this is the last time we're going to be doing this for a couple of weeks. We're skipping next week, I think.
We're skipping next week, but then we'll be back the week after.
We will.
The 3rd of January? We'll be back.
I believe so.
So we're skipping next week. We'll get that out of the way now. We're skipping, but it's nice to have you back in the studio and so much to talk about this week.
The looming week of the impending possible shutdown.
It's funny because this actually is normally a week where not a whole lot is going on in Washington. People are generally kind of winding down and, there's not tons of news. I mean, this is actually kind of a hard time for people in our industry because a lot of times, Congress is out and people are winding down for Christmas and everything. But, with this whole wall thing, I mean, it's actually we've had a lot of news the past week, particularly with the wall.
And the wall continues.
Or the lack of the wall.
or the lack of the wall, or the argument over funding. Last week we talked about the meeting at the White House with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and President Trump. And President Trump said he was willing to own a shutdown.
I am proud to shut down the government for border security, Chuck.
Now he seems to be walking away from that a bit. I find that a little disappointing. But that's just my personal opinion on that. And now, as late as today, now we have Mitch McConnell walking out saying that he's going to file a bill today that would fund the government through February 8th.
Later this morning, I'll introduce a continuing resolution that will ensure continuous funding for the federal government. The measure will provide the resources necessary to continue normal operations through February the 8th.
Put off any funding decisions on the wall until next year. So it looks like it's going to be another temporary funding bill, and they're just going to punt it across until next year.
Well, that's the way it always happens. When we've seen this constantly, they constantly kick the can down the road. And the problem with this is, and I know Mitch McConnell knows this because, for all for all you may think so, not a totally stupid man, he does realize that Democrats are going to control the House when they come back next year. And, we already are lacking the votes in the Senate, clearly, to get a border wall funded. That's something that Trump did bring up in his in the meeting last week. And I mean, as much as Nancy Pelosi didn't want to talk about it, that's very true. He needs the 60 votes in the Senate, and he's not going to get that. Well, now he's not going to get it in the House either. It's going to be interesting to see. I know that they've been kind of talking, and this is something that I find interesting. I don't really know how well this would work, but they're even talking about things like a GoFundMe for the wall because they know they're not going to get the funding through Congress.
Yeah, a study, we actually have it up on MRC TV today, shows that people polled, 1 in 5 said they're willing to privately fund the wall. It's interesting. They say, Nancy Pelosi hammers down that it's morally wrong. She supports a fence, but not a wall. But somehow a wall is morally wrong and a fence is morally ambiguous, I guess. They say a majority of Americans don't support a wall. 1 in 5, which it's not a majority, but it's a significant amount, say, let's find this privately. That was an interesting result of the poll. But of course, we don't get to decide where our tax dollars go. And an interesting headline I even saw from CNN, the $5 billion that could spark a partial shutdown is a very small part of the federal budget.
It is very, very small. And this is where, when you hear the Democrats and their arguments against a border wall, they're really not very explainable. They can't really say why they have a problem with a border wall. They just kind of call it racist and leave it at that. I think right now what it's about is stonewalling whatever Trump wants, no matter what Trump wants. And this is just the latest thing, right?
Well,
this is a campaign promise that they know if he fulfilled this, it would be very, very bad for them politically. So they're going to oppose it no matter what, even if they don't really have a good reason to. And here's one thing, too, if I can just, kind of go back to what you were saying about Americans who do or do not support the border wall. One thing that you constantly hear from people who don't want a physical border wall is, well, we've got a whole lot of other things we could do, right? We've got technology, we've got, aircraft, we've got drones, we've
lots
got
of other
cameras, we've got all this
security.
stuff. Border security, right? And we can just hire more border enforcement personnel who, of course, then they'll call them Nazis, so I don't know why we want more of them if they're just a bunch of Nazis. That's neither here nor there. But, all of these things are kind of thrown out there as a counter to the idea of a physical wall. As someone who's been to the border several times now and has stood on that border and in several different places, San Diego, Texas, and have talked with the border agents, one thing that you really have to remember if you're a proponent of that and you don't like the idea of a physical wall is a lot of those things, whether it's cameras or electronic sensors or things like that, they catch people coming across. They don't stop people from coming across. So it might be a good way to
it's
measure.
A deterrent
it's
and
a
measurement, but it's
a measurement, and
not,
it helps us apprehend them once they're here. But you have to remember, because of our immigration laws and because of our federal policies, once they set foot on our soil, they become our problem. We have to process them. We either turn them around to Mexico if they're from Mexico, or we process their asylum claims, or we ship them all the way back.
So wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me it's not a physical challenge to try to walk past a drone?
As somebody who has never tried, I really couldn't. I mean,
You're saying it might be harder to actually scale a wall than walk underneath a drone.
Might be a little more difficult. I'm just saying that, look, when you talk about technology, when you talk about more border personnel, again, you can talk about that like it is the same thing as a wall, but it's not. You still have to process all of those people because they become our problem. They become our thing to deal with once they physically set foot on our soil. So the whole point of a wall would be to keep people from even getting to that point in the first place, and would be to deter them from even trying. So there is a bit of a difference when you talk about a physical wall versus all of these other things that the left likes to throw out there as quote unquote just as good as a wall. It's not the same. It's apples and oranges.
But I mean, yesterday I believe they were offered 1.6 billion and then an additional billion in border security.
And we need that too.
As a way to wheel and deal to get the funding bill passed, and of course the Democrats weren't having any of it. So now it looks like it's just going to get punted. That's the news as of this morning. We'll see if that happens, or if there really will be a shutdown. It doesn't look like it, though. It looks like. Well, the thing is, I know
nobody's holding firm enough, I don't think, for there to be a shutdown.
Well, the Democrats are holding for it,
but nobody on the Republican side, I don't think, is holding firm enough to, and that's kind of we've seen that before. We've seen that before, where it's we're going to plant our flag here and we're going to really stick to our guns here, and then
the Republicans cave. It's happened with Planned Parenthood funding. It's happening again with the border wall, and then of course things get more difficult, as you mentioned, when the Democratic majority takes over the House, which will be in the next year. Now, one other thing about the border wall that was big news over the weekend and into the beginning of the week was sadly the 7-year-old girl that passed away. Not only is that news sad, but I'd have to say the liberal media's mass rush to judgment made this story even sadder, because they were quick to blame Customs and Border Patrol for the incident. And that I know you did a story on this, so you can tell us a little bit more about what happened here.
I did, and sadly, this is not something that is rare, and it's another thing that I think people need to recognize when you're talking about the border and you're talking about a deterrent to try to keep people from taking an extremely dangerous journey up through Mexico and across into the United States. This was a 7-year-old girl. Her name was Jacqueline. I believe, she's got a very long name, but Keal is how you pronounce the last name. But anyway, 7-year-old Jacqueline came across with her father. She was from Guatemala, so they had come up through Mexico, made the big journey with the caravan,
right,
and came across the border and was apprehended in New Mexico, where they took them to one border facility, and then they were going to put them on a bus. There was a whole group of migrants. It was like 100, almost 200 migrants that they had apprehended altogether. And they were going to put them on a bus and take them, it was about 90 minutes to the next border facility where they were going to be held and processed. And right before she got on the bus, her father told border agents that she was ill, that she was throwing up. So they said, okay, well, we are going to arrange for an ambulance to meet the bus as soon as it takes this hour-and-a-half long journey to the next border facility. We're going to go ahead and have an ambulance there. By the time they got there, this little girl was unresponsive, and so they medevaced her, they airlifted her to a hospital in El Paso, and she sadly passed away 2 days later. Well, of course, the media immediately politicizes this little girl, because it's really like, let's be honest, to them, it's not about the fact that this little girl died. It's not about the tragic circumstance that this little girl came all the way from Guatemala and she didn't make it, something went wrong. It's about what can we do with politically? How can we make this little girl an icon? How can we use her face and her name to spin this in an anti-Trump
and
way?
first of all, I want to call it the ACLU. The American Civil Liberties Union went to the press, and they talked about, and I'm going to quote this here, the lack of accountability and a culture of cruelty within the CBP.
I don't think they understand what CBP does, because if you understand anything about U.S. Customs and Border Protection, I mean, these men and women put their lives on the line every single day. They are constantly rescuing people from the desert. They medevac people all the time. They are constantly rescuing people from stash houses. They have jumped into the Rio Grande to save people, including children, from drowning, because there are times of the year where that's an incredibly dangerous trip across that river. These are men and women who risk their lives every day to assist migrants coming across, even illegally. At the moment, that's not what they care about. They care about making sure these people are safe, and they save lives every single day. But what's interesting is the ACLU, the media, Kamala Harris, senator from California, they jumped to conclusions.
Yeah, they made the CBP look bad.
They did. They immediately started calling border agents Nazis and murderers.
This has to do with family separation.
Well, it turns out, first of all, and I will give Jake Tapper credit, by the way, on CNN, he was one of the first to report that this little girl's father had actually told the Guatemalan consulate that he had no complaints with how CBP treated his daughter, that they gave her the best medical care that they could, that they responded as quickly as they could. And then it turns out that medical officials who were responsible for this little girl's autopsy determined that most likely she had died of sepsis, a blood infection that had stemmed from an infection she had picked up along the way, and there was nothing. She came into the United States with this. There was nothing they could have done about it. So before any of the details even came out, they were branding CBP murderers, and now that the information has come out,
they will kind of walk away. The story disappeared.
We just don't talk about it anymore.
It's Wednesday, and there's just nothing. They're not talking about it anymore.
Absolutely.
The liberal media is absolutely amazing.
So it's terribly sad, and it happens all the time. I mean, I said in the story that I did for MRC TV the other day.
Right, and this is important to note that people dying at the border after they cross into the U.S. has been happening under every administration.
All the time.
I mean, I'm not going back to George Washington with this, but
yes, you have. I mean, we wrote a story 2 years ago in 2016, back when Obama was still in office, that there was one morgue, just one, in Arizona. We're talking about one morgue that had over 850 unidentified bodies of illegal aliens that had been found in the desert, that had died on their journey, and we're talking men, women, children, and babies. And they're sitting in this morgue in a freezer because nobody knows who they are, and we don't know where to send their bodies. And that's one morgue. So it's sad, but it's not a shock. This is what you get when you have an open borders policy and an open border system that encourages people to risk their lives and to risk the lives of their children to get here, because we dangle this carrot of basically, if you get here, you can stay.
Well, you just have to get underneath the drone. There's no wall to scale.
Underneath the drone.
You just have to get underneath the drone.
But it's terribly sad. It's absolutely horrible. We all wish that circumstances had been different for this little girl, but until we fix this problem, this is going to keep happening, unfortunately, and we're going to continue to see the left spin it politically. It's very sad.
Another incident involving a young child, in this case, a 11-year-old boy, who is a LGBT hero. News came out that there's video of he danced at a gay nightclub. Let's put it this way. Desmond is the name of this 11-year-old drag queen. Desmond Amazing, or Desmond is Amazing.
That's his stage name.
Is the stage name. Desmond Napoles. I don't know how to enunciate his last name exactly. But anyways, he's a prepubescent boy. He was dancing at a club called $3 Bills.
Yes.
Strangely enough, that's a gay club. Imagine that.
In Brooklyn.
Yeah.
It's a gay nightclub.
But there's video of men throwing dollar bills at a nightclub with an 11-year-old boy dressed as a girl gyrating around. And
It's really disturbing.
It's not only disturbing, it's questionable whether or not it's legal.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, is apparently this isn't the first time that this has happened. This is what's kind of what shocked me about this story. So this little boy, it started when he was 6. First of all, he kind of started to become this rising LBGTQ LMNOP, whatever.
He describes himself as gay. I understand, or attracted to men.
Well, I don't know who he's attracted to. He's 11 years old. He's probably not attracted to anybody at this point. I don't know how you could be, but all that to say, so it started when he was 6. He doesn't consider himself transgender. He just says he's a little boy that likes to dress in drag. And so he's been featured in New York Fashion Week and, held up. Good Morning America, this time about last year, ran this whole entire segment on this little boy. And everybody's talking about how amazing it is that he's himself and he dresses in drag. And we're talking about full-on makeup, full-on girl clothes. Well,
very sparkly, over-the-top, gay pride
insane.
Parade type thing that you would expect.
So he's been hailed as this hero. Well, now, and apparently this is not the first time he's done this. Apparently this is like his regular gig. But videos and photos.
Interesting way to make an allowance.
Well, I don't really know if his parents. I mean, what are his chores at home to clean up his own glitter? I don't know. These parents are insane because they're letting their child regularly go to LGBT-friendly nightclubs and gay nightclubs and dance on a stage
for adult gay men.
For adult gay men. And we didn't post the video and we didn't link to the video, and nor did we post, many of the pictures. We have like a very cropped one on our website because it's so disturbing. Social media, there were videos and pictures posted to social media about a week ago at this gay nightclub, $3 bill. It's this gay nightclub in Queens where this little boy is dancing to a No Doubt song. The band No Doubt, like,
right, yeah. Gwen Stefani, Just
Stefani
a Girl.
Yeah. He's dancing to one of her songs in a crop top, full makeup, and a blonde wig, and he's gyrating on this stage while grown men fling dollar bills at him. And I don't know. I don't want to put everybody in the left in this camp because maybe you're out there and you're just as liberal as they come, and even you find this disturbing. I can't imagine.
It seems some liberals do. From what I've seen in the comments on social media, even some liberals are. Some liberals and some gay men are saying, this is not okay. And you're right. It's not okay if it's a straight nightclub and it's a young 11-year-old girl dancing and gyrating. That's my thing. That's not okay.
Someone would have been arrested.
It's not okay for a boy at a gay nightclub. No. This has nothing to do with straight or gay. It has to do with this is a minor.
Well, and this doesn't even have to do with whether or not he's a little boy that wants to dress in girl clothes. That's a whole separate, whatever you think of transgender issues and all of that. I mean, in my opinion, if you encourage your child to be a gender that they are not, that's child abuse. You're encouraging a mental health condition that requires help. That is a legitimate mental health condition that we should be taking seriously and we shouldn't downplay, that requires help. But this isn't even about that. This is about the fact that you've got a child dancing at a nightclub for grown adults of any persuasion, of any gender, of whatever.
Right. This isn't a parade. This isn't a talent show. This isn't. It's a nightclub, and they're throwing money on the stage.
Well, and look, and again, I want to be careful here because I want to single out, not clump everybody together, but I want to single out the militant segment of the LGBT population that tends to promote
this. Yeah, they promote this activity.
This kind of perversion. This is different than just, well, I'm gay, stay out of my bedroom. This is to a whole different level where now we're into the sexual exploitation of children. And to me, you're right. This is an issue of legality. I didn't even think when I was younger. I don't know. I haven't been to a nightclub in a hot minute.
If he's touring doing this, maybe
how do they let you in the door unless you're 21
I'm
in a
not
place
sure.
like this? So I don't know. But the story's on MRC TV. If you want to read more, again, we didn't link to the videos or anything. Your eyes are not going to be assaulted. But this is something that I think we see more and more of these days. And when shows like Good Morning America are praising.
But Desmond, you're one of the youngest and first drag queen/kids, and I've heard that you've gotten messages from young adults who look up to you for being who you are. What are some of the notes you've gotten?
Some of the notes I've gotten are like that You inspire me very much, and I wish I could have had the support that you have.
You know,
Well, it fits their agenda. It fits
situations
the
like
agenda
this.
that they want to promote, which
We've
is
got a
unfortunate.
problem.
No, it is. It is a problem. And like I said, I'd be interested in wondering if there's going to be any legal action on this in the future. I have no idea.
Well, apparently, this isn't the first time he's done this.
No,
This is
and
a
I guess
regular
it would
thing,
depend on
so-
the state and what the rules are for nightclubs. But it just seems that having an 11-year-old of any gender gyrating while people are throwing money at them seems a little odd
It's sick.
and questionably
It's sick.
legal. Now, while we find something like that offensive, something liberals find offensive is, of course, Christmas songs.
Or just Christmas.
Or just
Christmas in
Just
general.
Christmas in some cases. We did a piece with WDOK, that's a station out of Ohio that decided they weren't going to play Baby It's Cold Outside because it was going to hurt people's ears. They were going to be exposed to this patriarchal, misogynist,
It's
rape culture, Me Too movement hurting song. So they banned it. And of course, we did a piece on that. We sent them a Profile and Courage Award that was shaped like a golden chicken, for protecting those.
Which
those
was
little
sarcasm,
ears.
by the way, for all of you out there who saw it and didn't get that. It was sarcasm.
Sarcastic. We recognize them. But now there's another station, Wakey or Wacky. I'm not sure how you say this, out of Kentucky. And they did something rather interesting.
They did. I'm so proud of them. We need to send them an actual Courage Award, one that's not,
Not a chicken, no.
They played Baby It's Cold Outside on a 2-hour continuous loop last Sunday in protest of all of the little snowflakes out there who are offended by this song, which, by the way, is almost 80 years old.
Yeah, it's like 70 years old.
I mean, it's basically like
It's been
fair
around.
use at this point. So again, what I find really interesting about anybody who's offended by this, and if you're offended by this, I really don't care, because you clearly don't have anything better in your life going on if you're offended by this song. How in the world is it that you're offended by Baby It's Cold Outside? Have you heard the lyrics in hip-hop songs and rap songs these days? I mean, it's even filtered over into, some country music that I listen to.
Have you seen
where
what's
it's-
acceptable on stage at $3 bills?
Well, so it's fine for 11-year-old boys to dress
Yeah,
in drag
I
and
would
dance
imagine
for
for
gay
some
men, but
people-
Baby It's Cold Outside is just a bridge too far.
But this
is the
station in
world we live
Kentucky,
in.
they took a stand. They were proactive. They went on social media. They did something about it. They said, you know what? We're not only going to play it, we're going to play it continuously on a 2-hour loop.
And I don't even really, to be honest, it's not even one of my favorite Christmas songs. And now whenever I hear it on the radio, I keep it on almost as my own internal
It's like a
protest.
small victory when you
It
hear
is.
the song now.
Me in my
isn't
little
it?
car, I'm just sticking it to the liberals if I listen to this song. That's where I live my
Go
life.
to the red
y'all.
light, roll down the windows, crank it up, and have people look at you strangely.
If you're offended, again, I just want to repeat, I don't care. I don't anymore. I used to kind of think that, okay, well, if you're not offended by something, but, somebody else is, like, maybe meet them halfway, maybe try to find, because now I just don't care. Because, everybody's going to be offended by something. There's always going to be something that they're offended by. And I'm just, I'm over it.
You're over it.
I'm over it.
It's time to move on. Well, anyways, Wacky out of Kentucky. They did it
Good
for
for
2 hours.
Wacky.
They put their money where their mouth was. They said they were going to do it on social media, and on Sunday they did. And that wraps us up for time already as we get
does.
ready for Christmas and get ready to celebrate the new year. Again, as we mentioned at the beginning, we will be taking next week off, but then we will return just as the new year begins.
Yep. We have families too. I know it's easy to forget sometimes that we do. I feel like we live here. But it's gonna be a good holiday. We're excited about it. Hope that everybody else out there has a very, very Merry Christmas. Drive safe if you're traveling, and we will see you back here in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.